Karina Pents, a 61-year-old woman, began to suspect that she was being betrayed by her husband and spread hidden cameras around her home. Confident that the man was having an affair, she discovered something much worse. Karina had just a few days ago celebrated her 61st birthday. To mark the occasion, she threw a huge party. She had always imagined that she would die young, and that by the age of 60, she would be 7 feet below the surface. She said this because of cancer she discovered at the age of 45, but she was wrong. So when she turned 61, the celebration was special. That evening, her children, who had come from the capital, attended. Karina's brothers and sisters also came, bringing back childhood memories. And as she was a woman greatly admired for her big heart, several friends she had made during her life attended. Only Pablo, Karina's husband, was not there. Everyone ate, danced, and laughed while the children ran around. Many of those people had not seen each other for a long time, so the party became bigger than just Karina's birthday. It was a big reunion of friends and family. Karina was happy, but she felt uncomfortable every time she looked at the crowd and did not see Pablo among those people. It was strange that her husband wasn't there. After all, he had spent his life being very attentive to her. He always showed up with roses, chocolates, or perfume on special dates. That night, Karina insisted on wearing a set of jewelry Pablo had given her on their 30th wedding anniversary. By then, Karina didn't think she would make it past 60, so her husband told her it was silly. "Stop being a superstitious woman. You'll live a long time, and these accessories will beautify you for all the years to come," he said. Pablo was a service provider for insurance companies who always had calls at odd hours to keep, but he found that on this day, he was taking too long to return. Just before they sang happy birthday, Karina went to her sister and confessed that she was getting worried. Her husband wasn't answering his calls, and her messages weren't arriving. Karina had spent so much time imagining her early death that she was now fantasizing about horrible things that could have happened to her husband. However, her sister reassured her that he would be here soon, and that it was normal for him to answer calls in the middle of the roads and fields. The birthday girl thought she was overreacting and tried not to think anymore about nonsense and tragedy. However, as the hands of the clock ticked forward, her anxiety only grew. Just after they served the cake, she received a text message saying, "My love, I'm sorry I'm not there for you. I love you. Work is harder than I imagined, but I promise to make up for my absence." Karina tried not to be shaken by it. The party was better than she expected, but it would never be complete without her companion. It was midnight, and Karina called it a day. She went home and laid down to sleep. She woke up in the middle of the night when she heard the shower. Pablo appeared in the room and turned over to rest. Karina noticed that the man seemed exhausted, so she decided not to say anything and let him rest, but this behavior was unusual for her husband. The following day, his wife had set the table with delicious dishes. Seeing her husband with his face still crumpled and sleepy, Karina asked what had happened at work. "I was waiting for you to arrive to celebrate with our friends and family, but you didn't show up," she said. Pablo sighed and asked his wife not to smother him with those questions because he was still exhausted. During the following week, Pablo exhibited distant behavior that didn't match anything Karina knew about her husband. He would come home from work later and lock himself in his room for quite some time. The woman knocked on the door, letting him know that dinner was on the table, and he just answered dryly but wouldn't leave. Karina thought something might be happening at the insurance company, but he wouldn't say anything. Karina tried to understand and give her husband some space, but her heart was pounding. Not even when she imagined that she would be dead at the age of 60 did she feel so tragic. At the end of the week, when she realized that his behavior was not changing, she called Brenda, her older sister. As she related all that was happening, the woman trembled. Brenda listened attentively, trying to follow her sister's reasoning. "Am I going crazy or should I be worried?" Karina asked. Brenda paused for a few seconds before responding that she suspected he was involved in something dangerous and illegal, or that he secretly had another woman. The older sister said Karina should trust her intuition to figure out what was happening. Later that day, she began researching models of discrete cameras and installation services for the equipment on the internet. Pablo had always been a very attentive and exemplary man, but after seeing no better alternative, Karina put this idea into action. She bought the equipment, and a surveillance team installed the system in her house while her husband was away. By now, the anguish had turned theories into facts in her head. Karina was confident that her husband, at the age of 64, had a mistress. When she looked at the first recordings, she noticed that Pablo slept in the bedroom, got up in the middle of the night, and ran to the bathroom, where he stayed for several minutes. Karina was sure that this could only mean that there was another woman in his life. Karina began to cry because she wanted to confront Pablo and say everything she thought, but she was too nervous. It was more than 30 years of marriage that were at stake, but she knew it wasn't fair to be deceived like that. When Pablo came home from work that night, she asked to speak to him. Pablo stood facing the woman with a surprised and downcast expression and waited for her to speak. "It's been months since you've been different, and you don't treat me like you used to. I don't know how you could do this to me, Pablo," she said, to which the man replied, "Do what, Karina?" "You have another woman. I already know everything. Who are you seeing? Be a man and assume that," said Karina, raising the tone of the conversation. Pablo shook his head, wondering what the woman was talking about. He took steps backward as his wife became more and more upset. Karina grabbed the tablet and showed him the recordings as he denied the entire story. Pablo then changed his expression. He bent down and began to cry, heartfelt and sad. "Forgiveness, Karina. I'm sorry, my love." At that moment, Karina looked at her frail husband in front of her. She wasn't sure she could bear to hear it, but he needed to confess. She had to be prepared. But then things changed course. Pablo said he didn't cry because he had been unfaithful. Instead, he had been hiding something from his wife for a long time, which killed him. Then he told her his secret. With his voice shaking, he announced that he had been feeling pain for some time and decided to go for tests. He discovered that he had stage 3 cancer that left his kidneys badly damaged. The man realized that surviving another year would be challenging, so he decided to work extra hard, sacrificing whatever energy and disposition he had left in his body to leave a good reserve of money for his wife. He told her that the drugs he was taking to treat the tumor and relieve the pain made him very sleepy. When he went to the bathroom, it was to vomit, a side effect of the treatment he was secretly taking. "Forgive me, I didn't tell you sooner. I didn't want to worry you," Pablo confessed. Karina was stunned by this revelation. Not knowing what to say, she hugged her husband, and the two cried together. Pablo asked his wife not to tell anyone about his cancer. He didn't want anyone to look down on him or feel deprived of his final months. The couple tried a second medical opinion and new treatments, but Pablo's kidney damage was already irreversible. They again had a close and sincere relationship until Pablo's last days. "You know, having you here makes everything better," he admitted. Then the two fell asleep, not knowing what awaited them the next day. The only certainty was that one would never abandon the other in life. If you liked this story, please leave a like and watch the video to the right of the screen. That will probably move you as well. See you in the following video.